Hi, I'm Aileen. On my 33rd birthday, I sat alone at a table set for six. I wore heels I hated, poured the wine they never showed up to share, until my phone buzzed. The message from my mother read, "You're not our priority right now." They didn't forget. They made other plans without me, using the money I gave them. They ghosted my dinner to throw a party for my brother. How do you come back from something like that? Or maybe the better question is, why would you want to? I arrived 15 minutes early, just as the sun dipped behind the Denver skyline, casting long amber shadows across the sidewalk. There was a light chill in the air, just enough to make me glad I'd chosen the long-sleeved dress. It wasn't fancy, but it was intentional. The kind of outfit you wear when you want people to know you made an effort. The hostess glanced at her list and smiled. "Party of six?" I nodded, smoothing the napkin in my hand. "Yes. Aileen, I made the reservation last week." She led me to a table near the front window. 6 seats, clean, elegant place settings. A small votive candle flickering in the middle. I sat on the end, facing the entrance. The waiter stopped by. "Would you like to wait to order, or—" "They're just running a little late," I interrupted, too quickly. "I'll wait." He nodded politely and walked away. I checked my phone. 6:47 p.m. Nothing. I tried not to overthink it. Zinnia was always fashionably late. Curtis probably lost track of time again. And Mom, well, she rarely arrived early to anything unless it was someone else's event. I adjusted my fork slightly. Then again. Then again. A nervous tick. I'd picked this place for a reason. Quiet. Familiar. Not too expensive, not too casual. A place that said, "You matter enough for me to plan this." I scrolled through my phone to distract myself, pretending to be busy. An email from work. A sale at a store I didn't shop at anymore. Then the screen lit up again. This time, a text. From Mom. I unlocked it immediately. "You're not our priority right now. Enjoy your dinner." That was it. No happy birthday. No explanation. Just those 13 words, wrapped in a tone that felt rehearsed. I stared at it, reread it twice. Then again. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was deliberate. The waiter returned with a wrapped package. "Someone dropped this off earlier today for you," he said. "Said it was from your family." I thanked him, managing the kind of smile you give strangers when you don't want them to ask questions. The wrapping was neat, the kind Zinnia always insisted on. Minimalist, matte gold, no bows. I unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a scarf, pale blue silk. I held it up and felt a sinking recognition in my gut. I had bought this exact scarf for Mom last Christmas. I remembered the brand, the stitching, even the little snag near the edge where she caught it on her ring. I looked at the card tucked beneath the tissue paper. "Happy birthday, from all of us." But underneath that message, faintly visible, was my own handwriting, the one I'd written last year. "Love you always, Mom." They hadn't even bothered to use a new card, just rewrote over the original, like memory could be overwritten the same way. I placed the scarf back in the box. My hands were steady, but my breath wasn't. A couple at the table beside me sang softly, some kind of anniversary celebration. Glasses clinked. Laughter bubbled from the back near the bar. The world kept turning. I lifted my wineglass and took a sip. I didn't cry. I didn't call. There was no panic, no drama, just a weight settling inside me like concrete. The thing about being excluded enough times is that it eventually stops feeling shocking. I remembered birthdays where my presence felt optional, ones where Zinnia gave a speech and forgot to mention me, or where I ended up taking pictures instead of being in them. This one was different, though. This one was mine, and they chose not to show up. I sat for a while longer, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. Then I pulled a sticky note from my purse. I'd brought it to jot down a grocery list, maybe. I used it for something else. 5 words. That was all I needed. I left a 20 under my plate, more than enough for the wine, and walked out quietly. I didn't tell the waiter goodbye. I didn't check my phone. On the table, beside the untouched bread and the recycled gift box, sat the note. Thank you. No more seats. By the time I got back to my apartment, Denver had gone quiet. The sky outside my window was holding on to the last bits of blue before turning completely black. I dropped my purse on the counter, slipped off my shoes, and tossed the sticky note I'd left at the restaurant next to the fruit bowl I never filled. The apartment still smelled faintly of hairspray and anticipation. I didn't bother turning on the lights. The glow from the city was enough to navigate around my own disappointment. I poured a glass of water I wouldn't finish and sat down at the edge of the couch, like I was still waiting for someone to join me. My phone buzzed. I ignored it for a moment, half hoping it was just another calendar reminder. But something in me itched. It was a notification from Instagram. Zinnia had posted a new photo. My thumb hovered over the screen. I shouldn't have clicked, but I did. The image loaded slowly. Then it hit me like a punch in the throat. There they were, Velma, Zinnia, Curtis, even Uncle Ray, who hadn't been invited to anything since he got caught lying about Dad's will. They were standing in front of the Marina restaurant in Boulder, smiling, glowing, holding glasses of champagne. Curtis stood front and center, arms stretched out like some hometown hero. In his right hand, a keyring with a motorcycle emblem. The caption? Celebrating the dreamer. He finally made it happen. My stomach turned. I zoomed in. Velma was wearing the same scarf they'd regifted me just hours earlier. On Curtis's wrist, a new watch, sleek, expensive, familiar. I blinked twice. It was the same model he'd sent me in a text 2 months ago, asking if I thought it was too much. I told him not to buy it. He'd said he couldn't afford it anyway. And yet, there it was. I set the phone down. For a second, I just stared at the reflection of my face on the black screen. Then I picked it up again and opened my banking app. There it was. Last Tuesday, $1,500 wired to Curtis's account. He'd said it was for rent. He'd cried. They're threatening to kick me out, Aileen. I'm scared. He wasn't scared. He was shopping. I let the phone slide from my hand and fall onto the couch. My chest wasn't tight. My eyes weren't burning. I felt, still, like someone who had stepped out of their own body and was watching the scene from the ceiling. They hadn't just left me off the guest list. They'd used my money to fund the party. They'd raised a glass to my absence and paid for it with my kindness. I got up and walked over to the table. My laptop was already open from earlier that morning, when I'd tried to book a dinner reservation with enough seats for people who didn't even bother to reply. I clicked into my financial folder and created a new document. Support, unreciprocated. Line by line, I began adding what I could remember. Car loan relief, $2,800. Mortgage bridge payments, $5,200. Emergency dental for Zinnia's son, $600. Motorcycle celebration, funded unknowingly by me, $1,500. No receipts, no thank yous, no invitations. I copied the photo from Zinnia's post and pasted it beside the last line. Then I opened another tab and searched for the phrase, selective family amnesia, just to see if someone else had defined it better than I could. My phone buzzed again. A forwarded voicemail from Velma. I didn't play it. Instead, I let the notification sit on the screen while I stared out the window at the slow crawl of headlights in the distance. Somewhere, a couple was probably celebrating an anniversary. Somewhere, someone was holding a child close after a long week. Somewhere, people were choosing each other. And mine had chosen this. I whispered to the silence. This is what they chose. Let them live with it. The next morning came quietly, as if the world itself was trying not to intrude. I woke up not because of an alarm, but because the blinds hadn't been fully closed the night before. Pale light spilled across the carpet, cold and uninviting. My apartment, still tidy from hours of trying not to feel anything, looked like it had been set up for a guest who never arrived. I didn't reach for my phone. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the corner of the room where my suitcase leaned against the wall. Still packed from that weekend, I'd canceled to help Velma fix a leaking pipe. She said she'd tried calling Curtis first, but you know how boys are. I remembered missing a weekend getaway with people who actually wanted me around. And I remembered saying, "It's okay, Mom, I'll come." It was never okay. I just didn't know how to say that out loud. At the kitchen table, I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd started the night before. I created a new tab and typed the title, Emotional Overdrafts. Then I began to list. Not just the wire transfers and checks, but the moments I had withdrawn something from myself to deposit it in someone else. Canceled trip to New Mexico, Curtis's car broke down. Thanksgiving catering, no reimbursement, never acknowledged. Zinnia's baby shower decor, last-minute ask, thanked only on Facebook. Velma's emergency dental bill, claimed she'd pay me back, never did. No tears, just facts. That was the difference between sadness and clarity. Sadness left you curled up. Clarity sat you up straight and asked for itemized proof. My mind wandered. There was Zinnia's wedding. I was seated near the back, next to the catering intern and someone's ex-boyfriend. When they raised glasses for the toast, Zinnia said, "To my amazing family," then forgot my name, called me Aileen with a long I, like I was a +1. And the Christmas Eve dinner, where Velma asked me to just help in the kitchen, real quick, while everyone else posed for photos by the tree. I came out 20 minutes later with a tray of roasted vegetables and heard Uncle Ray ask, "Oh, you were here?" I was always there, just never counted as being there. The difference was subtle, but sharp. My phone finally buzzed. I glanced at the screen, a message from Marla. "Hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. My aunt ran into your mom yesterday. She said Velma told people you're exaggerating things, making drama, said you've always been a bit much." I set the phone down slowly. So that was the story now. Not just erased, but rewritten. My silence wasn't just being ignored. It was being used. I thought about every family gathering I'd shown up to out of guilt, every birthday party where I'd taken the photos instead of being in them, every gift I'd sent when no one remembered mine. And I thought of the photo I'd seen just hours earlier, of them celebrating Curtis, funded by my blind generosity. I scrolled through my phone and found a picture from 2 years ago. Holiday dinner. Everyone was smiling. Velma was holding a glass of wine. Zinnia wore a red satin dress. Curtis had already spilled gravy on his shirt. I wasn't in the picture, because I was the one who took it. I held the phone in my hand for a long time, staring at the image like it might finally let me in. It didn't. I was never in the picture, I whispered to the empty room, because I was the one framing it. Monday arrived wearing a gray sky, and the kind of breeze that feels like something's about to shift, even if no one says it out loud. I brewed coffee more out of habit than need. The silence in my apartment was less of a comfort that morning, and more like a dare. After answering a few mandatory work emails, I opened the browser and logged into the mortgage account Velma and I had shared since Dad passed. I wasn't expecting anything dramatic. Just needed to double-check that the last payment I'd made actually went through. That's how it always started, with something small. But then, while skimming through the account details, I noticed an unfamiliar document attached to the property profile. It was a revised ownership agreement. My name had been listed on the original deed for 3 years. Now it was gone. I clicked the download button and opened the PDF. There it was, filed just 4 weeks ago. My name had been removed. The new document listed Velma and Curtis as co-owners. No signature line for me. No request for consent. Just a clean, silent erasure. I grabbed my phone and called the county clerk's office. After 5 minutes of hold music and 2 transfers, I was connected to a woman with a calm voice and a tired tone. "Yes, ma'am," she said, after I gave her the file number. This revision was submitted in person, Paperwork's been processed and notarized. I tried to keep my voice steady. Was there a signature from me on file? Let me check. The pause on her end stretched so long, I almost ended the call myself. Then she returned. There's a signature, yes. It says Aileen M. Jennings. Looks tidy, but no ID attached, no confirmation, just the signature page. I never signed that, I said flat. That's not mine. Well, she replied, her voice now carrying a hint of tension, I'd recommend contacting a property attorney if you believe fraud was involved. I thanked her and ended the call. Fraud. My own mother's hand likely on the pen, drawing a line through my place in the family. Again, only this time, legally. I minimized the window and tried to steady my breathing. My eyes caught the corner of a folder on my desktop. I opened it. Inside was a copy of last year's event flyer for the senior community fundraiser, the one I'd anonymously funded when the city cut their budget mid-year. Velma had shown up to the event in pearls and a pastel suit and gave a speech that left 2 board members in tears. She accepted the plaque in the family's name. The newsletter the following month called her the beating heart of the Jennings family legacy. My name wasn't printed anywhere, not even in the fine print. I dragged the revised deed into the folder and retitled it, Not Forgotten, Just Ignored. Then I took screenshots of the newsletter article and the event photo where Velma was front and center, smiling beside the mayor. I pasted them all into a single document labeled Pattern. I didn't call her. I didn't confront anyone. Instead, I drafted an email to a real estate attorney I found through a referral from a coworker. It was short, direct. I attached the files, laid out the timeline, and hit send before I could overthink it. The decision felt clean. Like pulling a splinter you hadn't realized had gone septic. Scrolling back through the PDF, I stopped on the final line. All heirs in agreement. Verified. They didn't even pretend to check. They just assumed. I whispered to the quiet screen. I wasn't just forgotten. I was deleted. The light outside had begun to dim, slipping into that soft blue-gray hush that happens right before night settles in. Shadows from the trees danced across the living room floor, stretching long and uncertain. I hadn't changed out of my work clothes, hadn't really done much at all. My shoes were by the door. The microwave meal was half eaten on the table, and I sat motionless on the couch, staring at the muted TV like it owed me something. I had grown used to the quiet, but that evening, the silence felt wrong. Not peaceful, performative, like something was waiting to happen, like a drum roll before the drop. Then a knock, soft but firm. Not hesitant. No, it was the kind of knock that said, I'm coming in, whether you like it or not. I opened the door, already bracing myself, and there she was. Velma, holding a pastel gift bag, the kind you'd pick up last minute from a pharmacy. Tissue paper fluffed up like whipped topping. Her face was tight, every inch of her smile strained, like it might snap if she blinked too hard. Thought we could talk, she said, like adults. I didn't move. I didn't offer her a seat, but she walked in anyway. Of course she did. That's always been Velma, deciding what the rules were and who had to follow them. She perched on the edge of the couch as if it might stain her. I stayed standing. There was no version of this where I made myself smaller just to make her comfortable. I know how things looked, she began, smoothing her palms on her jeans. But we honestly thought maybe you needed some space. After what happened at dinner, I blinked. Just once. What happened at dinner, I said slowly, was that you didn't show up. She acted like she didn't hear me, just kept going. I just think there were misunderstandings, and, well, you're not always the easiest person to what? I asked, letting the words slice the air between us. Velma exhaled sharply through her nose, dropping the nice girl act. You're just so sensitive. You always take everything personally, like the world is out to get you. Ah, there it was. The old refrain, the family classic, that I was the problem, that I was too much, or not enough, that I couldn't take a joke, couldn't let things go, Couldn't just be easy like everyone else. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Not the way they wanted me to be. I looked her in the eye and said, calm and clear, "No, I just stopped lying for you." Her mouth twitched. Not a smile, not quite a frown. Just that uncomfortable recognition that someone has seen through you. She crossed her arms and leaned back, like she was settling into her disappointment. "I didn't come here to apologize," she said. "I just didn't want people thinking we abandoned you." Of course not. It wasn't guilt. It was optics. She placed the gift bag on the table, like some kind of offering, her expression stiff with effort. I picked it up, walked to the kitchen, and dropped it gently into the trash can. Not with anger, with finality. When I turned back around, she was still watching. Frozen. I reached into a drawer near the sink and pulled out the folder I had prepared earlier that week. I'd been waiting, not hoping, preparing. I handed her a single page from it. It was neat, detailed. A financial breakdown, every contribution I'd made to the family over the last 5 years. Dates, amounts, rent, groceries, utility bills, emergency bailouts no one ever paid back. Velma glanced at it, then looked at me. Her face didn't move, but her fingers tightened around the paper. "This," I said, "is who you've been talking about behind my back." She opened her mouth to respond, but didn't find the words. I didn't stop. "Next time someone asks where I've been, tell them the truth. Tell them I stopped paying to be ignored." Her shoulders dropped slightly, like the mask was too heavy to hold up anymore. She stood slowly, adjusted her coat like it was armor, and walked to the door. Just before she left, she paused, one hand on the knob, and muttered over her shoulder, "You'll regret this once you're alone." I walked her to the door, closed it quietly behind her, and turned the lock. Then, I leaned my forehead against the wood, breathing in the weight of it all. Not sadness, not victory, just release. "I've already been alone," I whispered. "This time, it's by choice." And in the stillness that followed, I didn't feel hollow. I felt free. Friday evening slid in without ceremony, the kind of quiet that makes you realize just how loud your life has been. Outside, the air had turned crisp, dry, with that first whisper of winter tucked beneath it. I hadn't bothered to shut the balcony door after the sun dipped below the skyline. Letting the cold creep in felt like my own silent rebellion. It stung a little, sure, but it was honest, cleaner than the backhanded concern and performance apologies I'd been fielding for weeks. I sat cross-legged on the edge of the couch, barefoot, a throw blanket wrapped around my shoulders like a shield. A glass of wine sat untouched on the side table beside me, the rim catching a sliver of lamplight. I wasn't drinking tonight, not out of discipline, but because I wanted to feel everything, clear and raw. My mind wandered back to Velma's visit, but this time I didn't flinch. I didn't replay her tone or the expression she wore like she was auditioning for Martyr of the Year. Instead, I just heard the words. Not as threats, not as daggers, just as static that had finally stopped buzzing. "You'll regret this once you're alone." I let those words settle in the room like dust. Then I looked around. Alone wasn't new. Alone wasn't a punishment. It was where I had always done my clearest thinking, where I'd stitched myself back together after the last time they tore through me with their expectations, their entitlement, their relentless hunger to take without asking. I stood slowly, walked to the balcony door, and shut it. The latch clicked into place with a sound that felt final, like a door that doesn't need to open again. I turned to go back to the couch, and that's when my phone lit up. The family group chat. Alive and well, apparently. It had been weeks since I opened it. Still, the notifications crawled across my lock screen like a bad dream coming back for another round. Emergency call tonight, 8 p.m. sharp, no drama this time. Let's try to keep it civil and productive. And then, from Zinnia, don't invite her this year, she ruins the mood. The chat had a new name now, Family First, followed by a broken heart emoji and a waving hand. They didn't remove me. That would have taken a spine. Instead, They just kept talking as if I'd already left the room, as if I never belonged in it. I stared at the thread for a moment. My thumb hovered. Then I hit mute. Then delete. Not rage, not spite, just peace. I opened my inbox, hoping for something to pull my focus somewhere else, somewhere less toxic. And there it was. A new email from the real estate attorney I'd contacted earlier in the week. Subject: Final title adjustment confirmed. I clicked it open, my pulse slow and even. The message was short. Efficient. All title removals have been processed. Your name no longer appears on the joint property, effective immediately. No ceremony, no apology, just cold, clean truth. I exhaled, long and steady. My body didn't jump with joy. My heart didn't race. This wasn't triumph. This was extraction. A surgical removal from a sickness I'd spent too long calling family. I got to work, quietly tying off the remaining threads. I unsubscribed from the grocery delivery service Velma had hooked up to my account, still sending crates of expensive snacks to her house, like it was some family tax I owed. I shut down the autopay for the shared streaming accounts, the photo cloud, the password logins. One by one, I cut myself loose from every shared shadow they'd left behind. Then I drafted a message. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a release. Handled what I needed. No further responses required. I sent it into the void of the muted thread. Then, I opened a new folder on my desktop. Named it, Closure is Mine Now. Inside, I dragged the scanned title deed, the receipts, the screenshots, the thread where Zinnia suggested I skip Christmas for everyone's sake, the email where Velma denied borrowing my emergency fund, then Venmo'd it to herself the same day. I didn't plan to reopen that folder, but I needed it to exist. Proof. Not for them. For me. Because when someone tries to rewrite your story, you better be ready to show them the original. I passed the hallway mirror on my way to the bedroom. Something stopped me. I hadn't looked at myself, really looked, for days. I stepped back and stared. My reflection stared back. Same eyes, same face, but different posture. I didn't look like someone trying to win anyone back. I didn't look like someone begging to stay. I looked like someone who had finally stood still, long enough to let the storm pass, and realized she was still standing. You broke me once, I whispered to the mirror. My voice didn't shake. This time, I'm the one walking away. I turned off the lights. The room went dark, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel afraid of it. I felt free. Saturday morning arrived with a kind of hush, like the world had tiptoed in, not wanting to disturb me. The sunlight crept slowly across the living room floor, filtering in through the blinds, as if testing whether it still belonged here. For the first time in weeks, I didn't reach for my phone first thing. I made coffee, 2 scoops of the bold roast I'd hidden from guests. I watered the plants by the window, talking to them like they were old friends. I even pulled out that book I'd promised myself I'd finish, a collection of essays on stillness I'd barely cracked. For a moment, just a moment, I believed I might be able to slip into the rhythm of a life that belonged solely to me. One that didn't orbit around obligation, guilt, or manufactured loyalty. A quiet, self-authored kind of life. Then my phone lit up. 1 missed call, then 3, then 7. The family group chat, as always, had undergone another rebrand. It used to be called Emergency Mortgage Crisis. Then it became Unity Over Blood, and now it read Family Unity SOS. I didn't even need to open the thread to know what it meant. They were spiraling. A string of messages followed. Let's talk tonight. No judgment, just solutions. Time to come together. We can fix this. We need to regroup. And finally, the one that froze my fingers mid-scroll. Zinnia. Let's be real. Don't invite her this year. She ruins the mood. I stared at the screen. Her profile photo hadn't changed. It was still that overly filtered Thanksgiving group shot, taken at the house I'd partially paid for. The one where I was cropped out, just beyond the edge of the fireplace. Smiling, arms full of pies. Forgotten. I didn't respond. I didn't even finish reading the thread. I took a breath, captured screenshots of every message, and moved them into a folder I'd created at my attorney's suggestion. Defamation log. Inzio 1. It was growing faster than I expected. Instead of spiraling, I reached for something else. A weathered book from the bottom shelf, one my dad had given me years ago. It wasn't about money or law or ambition. It was about stillness. Something I hadn't known I was craving until recently. Halfway through the book, a page bent with use stuck out. A folded slip of paper had been tucked inside, thin, creased, with my dad's unmistakable handwriting. It read, "You are the one who gives without asking. Don't let them take that from you. Giving isn't weakness, baby girl. It's strength. But strength must be honored, or it turns into burden. And burden breaks." I sat there holding the letter, letting its truth crack through something tight inside me. It wasn't sadness that made my eyes sting. It was recognition, the ache of finally being seen, even in silence. I stood up and walked toward the photo wall. So many moments, frozen in time. But not mine. Zinnia's engagement party, where I had paid for catering and cleaned up solo at midnight. Gone. Curtis holding his newborn. I paid the hospital deposit when insurance didn't cover the rest. Gone. The family trip to Sedona, the one Velma took credit for? I had the receipts. Gone. I took down each photo, one by one. They clinked against each other as I dropped them into a trash bag. All except one. The picture of Dad and me, just us, laughing on the front porch, summer light in our hair. I tucked it behind my bedroom closet door, taping it inside so it wouldn't fall. That was the only memory I wanted to keep. Back in the living room, I checked my phone again. Zinnia had posted something new on her feed. A photo of a dimly lit family dinner, cropped tightly around the table. Caption: "Even when someone disappears, family still stands together." The comments rolled in like clockwork. "Hope you're okay. You've always been the strong one. She's probably going through something. Just pray for her." I didn't cry. I took screenshots. I attached them to an email titled Defamation Log, SU1, and sent it to my attorney with a single line, "For the case file." Then I powered off the phone and set it face down on the table. The silence didn't scare me, not anymore. "They wanted a quiet collapse," I said aloud, voice steady, steady in a way I hadn't felt in years. "What they're getting is controlled detonation." And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Not just free from them, but free to define what came next. No more adjusting the tablecloth. No more cropping myself out. No more pretending that being silent meant being kind. I wasn't disappearing. I was reclaiming. One photo, one folder, one truth at a time. I pulled out of the parking lot just before sunset. The little store-bought chocolate cake, still in its plastic container, sat on the passenger seat beside a worn paperback copy of All the Pretty Horses. It was Dad's favorite. I'd found it last night in a box marked winter coats, and for some reason, it felt right to bring it with me. The drive from Denver to Boulder wasn't long, just under an hour, but long enough to make me feel like I was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The air carried that dry chill that comes when summer starts losing its grip. Golden light filtered through the cottonwoods, and I noticed the way their branches moved, like they were exhaling, like they too had been holding their breath. I passed the restaurant where I'd waited alone the week before. That awful Tuesday. I didn't flinch. I didn't even glance at the valet stand. It didn't mean anything anymore. Some places lose their meaning when the people in them stop meaning anything. Edith's care home was quiet. Peaceful even. The woman at the front desk gave me a brief nod as she buzzed me in. She didn't ask who I was, or why I carried a lopsided chocolate cake with a single candle taped to the lid. Maybe she knew, or maybe she'd stopped trying to make sense of the stories that walked through those doors. Some visits don't need explanations. They're written on your face, in your hands, in the quiet way you move. I found Edith sitting near the wide front window in the common room. The light made everything glow a little. She was flipping through one of those oversized magazines meant for aging eyes. More pictures than text, the kind that fills space, but not necessarily minds. She looked up slowly, squinting at first, then grinning in that soft, crinkled way of hers. "Well," she said, folding the magazine in her lap, "would you look at that?" "Happy belated birthday to me," I said, holding up the cake like it was a trophy. She chuckled. "You're the only person I know who brings her own cake to her own party." "With one candle," I added, "and no guest list." "I'd say one guest is enough," she said. I set the cake on the little coffee table between us. I used the tiny lighter I kept in my purse, mostly for emergency incense or frayed shoelaces. Apparently now, for birthday symbolism too. I lit the candle. The flame flickered weakly in the late sun. We didn't sing, didn't make a wish out loud. We just sat and shared a crooked slice of too sweet cake and sipped coffee that had been sitting on the warmer too long. It was bland, but I didn't mind. I don't think she did either. In that moment, I felt more seen than I had in years. "I never had a daughter," Edith said after a while, leaning back. "But if I had, I think I would have wanted one like you. Stubborn, not soft. The kind of girl who doesn't wait for someone to offer her a chair, just drags one over and sits down." I stared at her, holding her words like a photograph I wanted to press into a book and keep forever. "If I'd had a mother like you," I said quietly, "maybe I wouldn't have spent so many years learning how to exist in rooms where no one saved me a seat." We didn't cry. Neither of us even blinked hard. Some griefs don't spill out. They just settle. By the time I left, the sky had turned that pale lavender shade you only get in Colorado, between late summer and early fall. The road back home felt different. Lighter. My phone buzzed twice in the cup holder. I didn't check it until I parked outside my building. The screen lit up. Voicemail from Velma. I pressed play. Her voice came through, hoarse and shaking. "You've made your point," she said. "This family is breaking because of you." I didn't finish listening. I deleted the message mid-sentence, before she could list all the other things I'd apparently destroyed. The guilt wasn't mine anymore, and I wasn't going to borrow it back. In the mailbox downstairs, a plain envelope waited. Legal stationery. I knew what it was before I tore it open. It was done. Signed and notarized. Final and binding. My name no longer appeared on any shared property titles. No more joint accounts. No more inherited obligations. Every last thread had been cut. Clean, official, irreversible. Inside my apartment, I turned on the lamp by the bookshelf and lit the same candle I'd used with Edith. I didn't know why. Maybe I just needed to mark the moment with light. Then I sat down and pulled out a blank note card. "Happy birthday, Aileen. You were worth showing up for." I placed it next to the only framed photo I still kept. Me and Dad, standing ankle-deep in a lake upstate, holding fishing rods and grinning at something I can't remember anymore. But we looked happy. I was barefoot. He was wearing that old ball cap he never let anyone touch. Then I opened my laptop. New folder, new file. Title: What I Owe Myself. Chapter 1. I didn't write a manifesto. I didn't draft a speech. I just typed, slowly, carefully, not to prove anything to anyone, but because I finally could. Because my story didn't belong to them anymore. And as the words filled the page, I realized something. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Sunday arrived before the sun even broke the horizon. I didn't need an alarm to wake me. My eyes opened to silence. No buzz of my phone, no urgent texts, no one tugging on the edge of my peace. The stillness wasn't just quiet. It was earned. And this time, it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like space. Mine. I stepped barefoot across the cool hardwood floor, heading toward the kitchen. My steps felt different, less rushed, more grounded. I brewed a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, listening to the faint hum of the machine and the occasional birdsong outside. Still no alerts, no calendar reminders. Just me, my breath, and the soft beginning of a day I didn't have to survive. I could simply live. Coffee in hand, I walked to the patio and did something I hadn't done in months. I slid the door open. Fully. The morning air rolled in gently. Not sharp, not intrusive, just honest. Like it wasn't asking anything of me. And I didn't flinch. I took a long sip of coffee, then just stood there, watching the sky shift colors. I wasn't waiting for anything or anyone. For once, I didn't feel like I was preparing for battle. I wasn't rehearsing a defense or crafting a careful reply. I wasn't trying to earn space that was already mine. My phone buzzed from the other room. I didn't rush. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, and dried my hands before checking it. Voicemail, from Curtis. I hesitated for a beat, then played it. No greeting, no emotion. Just his voice, sharp and familiar. Mom's freaking out. The mortgage is overdue again. The bank's calling. You knew this would happen when you pulled out. Just like that. No responsibility. No reflection. Just blame. Tossed like a hot potato in my direction. I didn't feel heat rise in my chest. I didn't feel the sting I used to. I just forwarded the message to my attorney with a simple subject line. Do not engage. A few minutes later, another ping. The family group chat I hadn't touched in over a week lit up. Velma. We didn't raise you to be cold. Zinnia, like clockwork, chimed in. You're still family, but family doesn't abandon. I just stared at the screen for a moment. They didn't raise me to be cold. They raised me to be silent, to absorb, to bend, to keep showing up even when the door was closed in my face. This wasn't abandonment. This was preservation. For the first time in my life, I wasn't cutting ties out of anger. I was choosing peace over performance. I placed the phone face down and walked to the bedroom. My closet door was already half open, and I pulled it the rest of the way. Inside, still taped to the wood, was a photo of Dad and me, slightly wrinkled from time, corners curled just a little. He was laughing in it, his hand on my shoulder, steady and proud. For a long time, I thought that photo was proof that I'd been loved. Once. But now? It reminded me of who I was when no one was watching. I grabbed a sticky note and wrote, You didn't raise me to break. You taught me how to hold. I pressed it beside the photo and smoothed the edges flat. Then I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the document I'd started after my talk with Edith. The title still read, What I Owe Myself, Chapter 1. I stared at the blinking cursor for a while, letting the quiet speak first. Then I began to type. Lesson 1. You are allowed to leave the table when love is no longer being served. I reread it. Then I smiled, hit save, and leaned back. I opened a new browser tab and searched for flights, not because I wanted to disappear, but because I wanted to arrive. Somewhere fresh. Somewhere I didn't carry old definitions of who I had to be. There would be no dramatic exit, no social media goodbye, no announcement, no final plea for understanding. Just a quiet decision, a booked seat, a tomorrow that belonged only to me. And that, right there, that was the freedom I'd been chasing all along. Not a house, not approval, not the illusion of reconciliation. But this. The soft click of a door opening in the morning, the taste of coffee without anxiety, the ability to read a cruel message and choose not to answer, the courage to say, this isn't where I stay anymore. I didn't feel lonely, I felt whole, and I knew, wherever I was going next, I wouldn't be bringing their silence with me, only my voice, and that was enough. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I spent years trying to earn a seat at a table that was never meant to hold me, and when I finally stood up, I realized I had the strength to build my own. If you're listening and you've ever felt like the background character in your own life, I want you to know this. Your worth isn't defined by who claps for you, but by how you choose to clap for yourself. Now I'm curious, have you ever had to let go of people you once called family just to finally find peace? Share your story in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. And if this video resonated with you, drop a 1 in the chat. Or tell me why it didn't. I welcome every voice here. If you believe in healing, strength, and stories that speak to the heart, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. There's more truth where this came from.